It's critical. And whenever someone you don't know is talking to you about ICE, don't share information. Fight Club, we don't talk about Fight Club. And if you are in a private space specifically, people cannot enter without a signed judicial warrant. And don't open the door. You don't have to open the door.
Thank you so much for being here with me today on From Dirt We Grow. It hits home for me today, and I'm very, very proud to have a gubernatorial candidate with me today. Please remember that even though these candidates are from different states, it's not just about the state we're in. This is about our nation as a whole right now. And it's so important to hear their voices. It's so important to hear how changing the way we vote or approach voting can change our lives, literally. You already heard from her in that beginning clip, so be sure to stick around, pass along the message. She's got some tips for you and some do's and don'ts. So stick around for that, and please hit that like button, hit the subscribe, and be sure to share the episode. I appreciate you for that. I am happy to welcome Ms. Francesca Hong here today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here, Stephanie.
Wisconsin is at a crossroads, rising costs and this political gridlock, policies that don't reflect the people who live in the state. So I wanted to talk to you about what's broken in our state and what you may have planned to fix some of these things. First, let's start with why are you running?
We are in a movement moment. I am really proud to be a part of a movement as a community organizer and bringing in my multiple identities as a single mom, a renter, a state legislator. I think we need a working class candidate to build working class power. So it's why I decided to run. And I think that now is a moment that also demands a relatable candidate, a bit of an outsider candidate, Democratic Socialist candidate. So it's been really an honor to build this grassroots campaign.
It's been an honor to watch you building this. You are all over social media, and it's great to see. Like I said, I've been talking with different candidates across the nation, but being in Wisconsin, it's absolutely a pleasure to talk to you. But Wisconsin workers are struggling. But what does your administration do differently than like these corporate profit, the corporations profit, and the workers struggle? Do you have anything in plan for that?
We have a plan for permanent affordability. I think it's important that elected officials recognize we owe it to the voters to enact policies that meet the scale and speed stress of what workers are going through. So our plan is one of universal policies, fully funded public education, universal childcare, paid leave for all, looking towards public banks and public groceries, because we need our tax dollars to be accountable back to the working class public and not reward corporate greed, corporate profits. And I think folks all across the state are ready for that.
Yes, ma'am. You come from who you're running for. It's so important for us to have people that know our position or have been in our position to advocate for us.
Yeah, and I'm a service industry worker right now. It's working multiple jobs, trying to parent and exist in growing fascism. The stresses are growing for everyone in our state. I think of this point, millionaires are working class when we've got folks who are about to become trillionaires in our world. A relatable working class candidate, but somebody who is unapologetic about sharing stories and vulnerability about the stresses and the crises we're all living.
Yeah, it's so important to address these issues and not give tax breaks to billionaires and trillionaires. Like you said, trillionaires are coming up. Housing costs are rising, and they're not doing anything to keep people housed. What's your plan?
Housing is a human right. And in Wisconsin, unfortunately, we've had a legislative majority that's run by a man called Robin Voss. And he is a landlord. And a lot of our laws that have been passed for the last 15, 16 years favor property owners. So we have to enact tenant rights, right to counsel, and we also have to make it easier to build housing. There are too many too many statutes right now where local government, it gets harder to do development because there are a lot of things that are constituted by the state. So unless there are state changes, especially when it comes to building dorms for our young people, we need to go to the building commission at the state. There's bipartisan agreement right now when it comes to workforce housing and affordable housing. You know, the other plan we have is if we establish a public bank, very similar to what North Dakota has, there's going to be lending that can happen from the state to make it easier to build affordable housing. So the issue is so complex and such a crisis that we have to address it from multiple angles. So, protecting tenant rights, making sure that we're repealing statutes that make it harder to build. Look at things like community land trust and a public bank that can give low interest loans out to make it so that we can build, and building is more cost effective.
And it's so important to come at it from different angles, especially when it's broken from so many different angles.
Exactly.
Now, in Wisconsin, obviously, there's a lot of farms out here in the rural areas, and the big agriculture, the big corporations, the consolidation. How can we protect Wisconsin's family farms?
Big ag and the consolidation of agriculture is really horrifying, whether it's with seeds and cover crops, as well as the acquisition of public lands and farmers like having to sell assets because it's getting too unaffordable to run their small businesses, their farms. It's important that the state step in and provide some, whether it's grants to help farmers remove nitrates from the soil and move towards more climate resilient farming, to investing in local food purchasing so that we can build the pipelines where farmers can have guaranteed contracts for sales, whether it's with our public schools or local food pantries. These are programs that have been built because there was a need, because communities needed resiliency when it comes to food systems. Our farmers are integral if we're going to have healthy food available for people in Wisconsin. And so investing in the types of programs that give farmers stability for selling their goods, to ensuring that there are ways that farmers can help make their lands to be able to, have grants to make their farms more, climate resilient, I think. And they're small businesses, right? And there needs to be more flexibilities in dollars for our farmers to be able to build in more resiliency and fight back against some of the big ag. But and then mental health care and healthcare are also issues for farmers in rural communities. And so investing in healthcare systems and making sure there's cheaper, affordable, fair healthcare for everyone, which can happen through a robust public option plan. And we have to invest in healthcare worker pipeline and have that available to folks in rural communities and folks who are on farms.
Now, okay, I'm in the Milwaukee area,
Hmm.
so I haven't seen this, but I know there's with the funding being cut everywhere for everything, and you're talking about healthcare access. Are small healthcare facilities being closed down in rural areas? Are we losing that in Wisconsin right now?
Yes, there have been hospital closures in western Wisconsin. Smaller clinics are at risk of closing because of the big bastardly bill. We're looking at least a couple hospitals in central Wisconsin, actually in Tom Tiffany's district, that are at risk of closing as well. Once these Medicaid cuts come through at the end of 2026, and there's less federal funding to reimburse hospitals for Medicaid costs, it's really going to hurt families that are both on Medicaid as well as the access to healthcare. And that's why we're looking at capping profits for high profit hospitals to invest those back into smaller clinics.
Okay, so I want to switch gears here a little bit. Wisconsin incarcerates at higher rates than many other states.
Mhm.
Where do you stand on prison reform?
We have to divest from a punitive system and invest in communities. And that's, investing in public education, ensuring there's funding for parks, community centers, making sure that there's green spaces and access to leisure and like state parks, and I think as well as in mental health care and crisis response teams here in Madison. We have the CARES team, and it responds to folks who may be in mental health crises as opposed to law enforcement coming in and having to be a social worker or mental health worker. And we know that there are many communities who don't feel safe with more law enforcement around.
Hmm.
Wisconsin is one of the most, and Milwaukee specifically is one of the most segregated cities in the country. And we incarcerate more black men, as you said, than many other states. We have to look at criminal legal reform from the lens of increasing pardons, yes, and looking at compassionate release and computations, as well as, there's during COVID, we were able to transition many folks who were incarcerated, help them transition into the communities. And so it's really unfortunate that we moved from a system like that to kind of going back to the way that things were prior to providing supportive services for folks who are either coming out of the carceral system and or doing more of that front end of the prevention work by investing in communities. And the other very critical thing we have to do is ensure that we are charging juveniles as adults, something that actually has had bipartisan support in the legislature that we haven't been able to get passed.
How can we have conversations even about public safety without criminalizing poverty and mental illness?
Some of the programs that I see as the most impactful in communities when it comes to supporting folks who are unhoused and helping folks find good paying jobs are the ones that really humanize and prioritize building relationships, because they're, for folks who have been abandoned by a system that again is perpetuates a class system. It's important, like they have no reason to really trust folks who are often trying to help. And so investing in those programs that are really prioritizing relationship building, making sure that the state is providing additional grants to, not just shelters and warming centers, that we're really looking at the programs that like cares, where it's mental health workers responding to people who are in crisis as opposed to law enforcement. And I think that prevention work on the front end with investing in public education, removing school resource officers from our schools, and really looking at making sure that we're not perpetuating a school to prison pipeline by not investing in some of the communities who have been most marginalized and left behind.
Milwaukee, namely.
Hmm.
I feel like Milwaukee is like it's segregated, but it's not. You know what I mean? Like the sides of the city, like the east side, west side, they're segregated that way, but I feel like it's a community that can come together.
Hmm.
I love being from such a diverse city.
Milwaukee is really special, and whether it's the creatives and the artists who are trying to uplift the stories of people doing so much to take care of their neighbors, to having some of the strongest community organizers here in Milwaukee. I think about organizations like Black Leaders Organizing Communities. I think about organizations like ECHO, where they are building the next generation of organizers to help their neighbors understand how important it is to be civically engaged, that voices and votes matter in every election, that we are helping folks become advocates for policies that are important to them, because it's the people who are closest to the problem that should be closest to the power, because they have the best understanding of the solution. There's a lot of amazing things happening in Milwaukee. So while the statistics that often, that people share are metrics for poverty or graduation rates, I think it's important to see Milwaukee as a place that continues to get stronger and work together and recognize that although there is still this class warfare, that's happening across the country, Milwaukee is doing its part to embrace their diversity.
Now, what would you say to voters who feel that nothing's changed for them when they vote?
I affirm that. We have lost trust in the political system and government, and there are a lot of elected officials who have not done their work to try to regain that trust.
Mm.
But in times of crisis and chaos, there's an opportunity for change and to build long term stability where folks can have economic freedom and more opportunities. And it's happening right now, whether it was, Mayor Mamdani's win in New York City, Georgia flipping a couple seats on their very important public service commission, to Seattle, a tech hub where you've got some of the largest wealth disparities, electing a Democratic Socialist mayor, Katie Wilson. Working class people are recognizing our collective power, and people are hungry for change. And in Wisconsin, we have an opportunity. We can all reimagine a better Wisconsin that belongs to each of us. And we elect an outsider, a Dem socialist, a very proud single mom like me, and reclaim our progressive roots. We're changing the political landscape for the rest of the country.
Yes, ma'am. That's a good point about not having trust in our systems anymore, in our politicians. Why should we trust you?
I don't think that I'm better than anyone else. I don't think I could. That comes from my background as working in the service industry for 17 years and still working in the service industry. Leadership to me is being able to foster leadership in others, building community by making sure people feel safe and seen and loved where they live is, I think, the strongest form of resistance against fascism right now. Because when we stop imagining better, when we stop thinking that better is possible, that's when fascism wins. And I know it's hard to have hope right now, but I don't think it's about trusting me. I think it's trusting that I'm going to work with others to enact a vision where Wisconsin belongs to everyone. And that can only happen with bold policies that will improve the quality of life for all working class people.
When we stop believing that we deserve better, we've been normalized too much to believe that this is like, oh, well, life isn't fair. Life sucks. This is how it is. No, it needs to be better. We deserve better. We need to demand better. Is there anything else you'd like to put out there for us that you want Wisconsinites to know?
Right now, there is ice in Wisconsin. Their presence is larger in western Wisconsin near Hudson, Menominee, Eau Claire. And it is so important to have a decentralized mutual aid community resistance system. And in order to make that happen all across the state, folks have to be willing and believe in mutual aid to get trained on legal observer training and know your rights, but also remembering to spread information and not panic. Verified ICE presence, or if you know someone that has been detained, to call the VOCES hotline at 1-800 427 0213. Recognize that. I think about it as like Fight Club, right? I need folks to get involved in the resistance building that is happening in your community, or to DM me to learn more about some of the resources that we can share. I just can't be out here putting it all on the social media. So send me a DM at Francesca Hong, WI.
Thank you for even bringing that up. Take heed and be safe and know your rights. That's important. How important is that?
It's critical. And whenever someone you don't know is talking to you about ICE, don't share information. Fight Club, we don't talk about Fight Club. And if you are in a private space specifically, people cannot enter without a signed judicial warrant. And don't open the door. You don't have to open the door.
Thank you so much for being here. You are just a breath of fresh air in this political climate right now. I wish you the best of luck, and I will be voting for you.
I really appreciate that, Stephanie. Thanks for growing this platform and helping to keep folks engaged. Your work is important.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And everybody out there, please share this episode like there's no tomorrow. Get the word out and find Miss Francesca on social media. She's out there. Check episode description box for all the information that you need.
Take care.
Thank you so much for being here. And thank you, everybody out there, for being here. And I will see you next week right here on From Dirt We Grow.